Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Islam Moors, please be seated. I rise, giving all praises to Allah, the Father of the universe, cherisher and sustainer of all the balanced universes. I extend the highest of honors to His Holy Divine Prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder, the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam. I extend high honors to his forerunner, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, who did indeed warn and stir up the nation's Islam. I extend high honors to the Moorish flag, the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center. These 5 points represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. These are the 5 highest principles known to man. Islam Moors? This is the American flag. I give honors to it, send honors to the American flag, because this is the flag of our birth. This flag exists also as the constant reminder that the European nations owe you, the Moors, with compound interest. Islam Moors? I extend high honors to the noble Sheik staff, noble Vanguard staff who keep the peace, and giving honors to you, the Ills and Bays. But without you, there is no Moorish movement. Islam? How's everyone on the holy night?
Alhamdulillah.
All is well? Praise Allah. Like I walked into some serious discourse going on in here. Praise Allah.
No discourse more.
Oh, no. Discourse is fine. That's just a conversation. As long as there ain't no disgust I walked into. You know? But praise Allah, Moors. You know, here we are, you know, in our Prophet's institution, you know what I'm saying, the Moorish Science Temple of America. This institution was established by our Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, because he knew our people needed, you know, to have an awareness of themselves. They needed to know about, you know, their nationality and their ancient and divine creed, right? The Prophet looked, having been a traveling man, he traveled around the, you know, the width and the breadth of the earth. As he traveled, he noticed that the various different nations of the earth dealt with nationality. They didn't deal with color-coded concepts. They didn't call themselves blacks, colored folks, Negroes, you know, etc. They referred to themselves by the nation and the ancient pedigree from which they descend. So Prophet Noble Drew Ali, you know, being inspired by Allah, comes back to the States, and in 1913 he establishes what was known then as the Canaanite Temple. Right? The Canaanite Temple was basically a, you know, a conglomeration of people from different schools of thought. They came together to, you know, to basically, you know, theorize on the possibilities of man. Prophet Noble Drew Ali's position was that, you know, we needed to not just demonstrate, you know, nationality, but our people needed a spiritual system, right? Because of what was done to our people, due to slavery, one of the things that is lacking from our people is a moral base, right? What they call the moral compass, right? See, when you have a spiritual system that's tied into the, you know, the direct line of your ancestors, that spiritual system gives you your right and wrong. It gives you your things that are important. It gives you the specific character traits from which you can raise your children. All right. But when you're dealing with the people that are, had everything removed, they're basically bound to their passions. All right. It did my soul good to see Sheikh Rashid Ibn Halim Bey, our noble chairman, and our brother right here, have a conversation, that seemed to get, a bit abrasive. But at a certain point during the conversation, they were able to civilize it, smooth out the rough edges of it, and make it civilized. You see, this is what's lacking, from our people today. Because if you go out there in the cares of the world, when two men get into a disagreement, the problem with men when they disagree is men kill each other.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And the reason why men kill each other is because they are bound by their passions. They don't know their higher self, right? Ones, those are the present are familiar with the chakras. Correct? I've heard the chakras before. How many chakras do you have?
7.
All right. You have 3 lower, 3 higher, and the transition point between lower and higher is the heart. Right? That's seat 4, the fourth plane. 4 represents foundation. Right? So what happens is, depending on what you feel, that determines where you dwell. All right? So how many times you heard people like, "Oh, I'm in my feelings. I'm doing, I'm gonna do something because I'm feeling a certain way." Right? That means they're dealing with root chakra. Animal self, that's fight or flight, or the two chakras right after that. But that's all, like creation, creating type of thing. You know what I'm saying, in terms of the material plane, right? When you start dealing with, the heart seat, the prophet says, he gives us keys. He says, he asks a certain question. He says, "Who made you?" Right? The answer is Allah. Who was Allah? Allah is the Father of the universe. Can we see him?
No.
Where is the nearest place to meet Allah?
In our heart.
Islam. So the prophets teach us that the first Moorish science temple of America was in your own heart, right? So when we say Moorish science temple of America, people think, okay, this is just a physical institution made of brick and mortar. When we talk about Moorish science temple, right? Moorish describes the man or the woman, right? Because that's the pedigree, that's your descent nature, right? Science means what? What does science mean?
Study.
To study or to seek or to know. Mainly the word know. And temple is thyself. Islam? So when we're saying Moorish science temple, we're saying man, know thyself. Islam? If you go back to the ancient temples in Egypt, what they call Kemet or whatever, Tamaray, whatever word you want to use, in the top of all the doorways, just like we have the chart of the Moorish science temple of America right here, there would be a doorway, and over the doorway there would be something written in a particular language that says, "Man, know thyself." Because before you come in the gateway, you're coming in that gateway to learn yourself. You know what I mean? And that's what the purpose of the Moorish science temple of America is. Now, going into something the Prophet referred to as the general laws, right? General laws are said by the Prophet Tuesday, October 17, 1928. I'm just going to read because you asked, you want a clear conception of the work we're called to do. But let's see what our Prophet says. It says, every temple and head is to function by words, deeds, and actions imitating the Prophet, especially when teaching a group of Moors, any group of Moors. Let me pause there. In 1928, there was only one group of Moors that was raised by the Prophet. We didn't have the different factions that we have today, right? So the Prophet in his prophetic capacity is predicting the fact that there's going to be different clans and tribes of us in the future. When we communicate with one another, he said, every temple and head is to function by words, deeds, and actions imitating a prophet. So what was the prophet's example? The prophet was a unifier, right? Can anybody tell me anything about 3140 Indiana Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, USA? Anybody tell me about anything about that address? And what it means to the Moorish movement, or what it meant to the Moorish movement? You notice that I see you have the Divine Constitution of Bylaws. That's generally at the bottom of the Divine Constitution of Bylaws. 3140 Indiana Avenue. 3140 Indiana Avenue was known as Unity Hall, right? Unity Hall was, the headquarters of the Moorish Science Temple of America. That's where the Prophet, set up his, home office when he wasn't literally at home demonstrating, which was right down the street, 3603 Indiana Avenue. But inside of, Unity Hall, it wasn't just the Moorish Science Temple of America. There was the Elks, there was the Prince Hall Freemasonic lodges, there were various different sororities, Greek sororities and fraternities, so on and so forth. But they were all in one building because they were working together. They were, because they were coming upon what we refer to as the divine plan of the ages, right? Where they would be in one sync in terms of, the direction they were going to go. That, like for our people. But when they separated into the world, as the chairman said, they remembered the relation that binded them to love and unity, right? So no matter what, even if they appeared to disagree, they would come to Unity Hall, hash it out behind closed doors. But when we come out to the world, we're one, right? I heard y'all demonstrating the other free national groups earlier, the Latino Mexicans, so on and so forth, right? When's the last time you seen like the Mexicans just like acting the fool out in the streets? You said a lot? Okay. Well, what happens is with that, is that by and large, it depends on what area of the country too. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're in Cali, you might see that a lot. Southern Cali especially, right? But by and large, when you see them about their business, right? If they do have a disagreement, they have particular, I use Atlanta for an example. Beautiful Highway is like the Mexican strip. That's where they're at, they're concentrated at. It's no strange happening that, the Mexican consulate is also on that same strip, right? So that when Mexicans come to Atlanta, they go in through the consulate and they tell them where the community leaders are, along that strip. When they get to those particular community leaders put them on to work. How to find, businesses, how to get started, get put on or whatever, right? And if there's a disagreement or whatever, they get with the community leader. The community leader solves the dispute. If he can't solve it, then they take it to the consulate, and the consul works it out, right? So that way they can go out into the streets and be a productive people. You see what I'm saying? So, but the point is they have their infrastructure in place to the point that when there's a disagreement, they go there and solve it and go out as a civilized people as one, right? The European has the same thing. He has his on an international level called the United Nations, right? Now, this is general opinion. I refuse to accept that the Europeans are any more advanced than we are. I refuse. Historically, it doesn't bear out, right? But yet, after World Wars I and II, which between the two, they lost right at about 70 million people, right? This is with them warring amongst each other, right? Like, you know how you can go to England today, and if you break your arm, you know what I'm saying, you just go in the hospital and get your arm reset and all that kind of stuff, and you can walk out and you ain't gotta pay nothing. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, assistance there, like when a woman has a baby, in France, she just have the baby and walk out afterwards, or, you know, be rolled out or whatever, and don't have to pay anything. Those, you know, social and health programs or whatever, those were put in place after World War II, because there was so much decimation. They looked and it was like, if we keep this up, we're not going to exist on Earth no more. So they put together at first something that was called the League of Nations. The League of Nations was put together like in the early part of the 1940s, and it didn't work, had a lot of quirks in it. And they got together and hashed out a charter, right? But it hashed out a charter which was, generate a more perfect union between them, and this ended up being the charter of what's now known as the United Nations, which David Rockefeller donated land in New York to house it, right? But it is there that they get together. When was the last war that took place between Europeans since 1945? Now, we consider them barbaric and savage, right? But they haven't warred with each other since 1945, but they've warred with other Asiatic nations. That's all they've warred with since 1945, because they got together to agree that they were going to do that, right? Now, where is the Asiatic institution that exists where we can come upon that type of mentality and go out to war and present ourselves not as civilized, but as civilizers, right? Well, we call ourselves Muslims, right? Moorish American Muslims. We greet by saying Islam, right? As Moorish Americans. The word Islam means peace. The word Muslim means peace. The Prophet says we advocate peace and not destruction. Islam? Our principles: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Islam. So, that being the case, we should be the #1 advocates for unifying the family. That's what this fez represents. You can put this fez headdress on and go 24,896 miles circumference of the planet Earth. This fez is recognized everywhere you go. Everyone knows it, right? That means our forefathers, everywhere they went, they lived the principles. They didn't go walk around necessarily with a book saying, this is my book, follow it. No, they're example. They were the message that they bring. You know what I'm saying? They built the hospitals. We went into Europe and healed them. You know what I'm saying? Even though we were at war with these people, but if you live on Earth, you can't be walking around in a diseased state, because that's going to affect everybody else. So we got to go in and cure. You know what I'm saying? We got rid of illiteracy. We got rid of all these different things that was affecting humanity, in a negative way. We basically uplifted fallen humanity in the ancient times. So when the Prophet brings that back as our mission statement now, right? That we must uplift fallen humanity and teach those things necessary to make our people better citizens. It's nothing new. We've been doing this. This is the old time religion. This ain't new. All right? Moving forward, the Prophet said, these are the general laws. The supreme laws will be handed to you later. The heads of all temples are to submit a report monthly of all finance. The heads of all temples are to refrain from all wrathful words, profanity in the mildest form from all members of his or her temple. They must live the life of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and refrain from all alcoholic liquors or any other harmful possibility that would terminate to destroy peace, or any other of the divine principles. They are not to contribute to anything that will cause the public to disagree with him or her. And for one to lead a group of Moors, you must keep your house clean with good deeds, kind words. Your wives, brothers, must hear good words, kind words, and must know of your good deeds. If there are children, you must see to their support. Follow this divine principle, for if you don't restrict to this divine principle, then you are not a true Moor. And the heads of temples are not to overcharge for membership or to overcharge for cards, buttons, or anything issued by the Prophet. Those who contribute to either of the preceding are not Moors, but robbers. That's the Prophet's Islam.
Where is that at? That's in the
Moorish literature. We have the Moorish literature pamphlet?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Moorish literature. Let me see the cover of your Moorish literature so I can make sure. I got all kind of records over there.
I got it.
I see you got the Prophet all up in there, okay?
Yeah, it's in here.
Okay. Well, praise Allah. What I'm saying is that, if just for those who may not know, Moorish literature is a compilation of articles that were taken out of the Moorish Guide newspaper. Like as an example, you know how the Nation of Islam has the final call nowadays, right? Well, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali back in 1928, every Friday, like today is the holy day, You know, if we were back in 1928, a new paper would have came out, right? Showing us, you know, what was going on nationwide, what temples were doing, what political stuff, what business links. And again, not everybody that contributed to that paper was all proclaimed Moorish Americans. Right. You know what I'm saying? It was, you know, it was various different Christian preachers, you know, Masonic people, whatever. You know what I'm saying? People that had different kind of businesses, all walks of life, because the prophet was about unity, right? And he said our greatest weapon is the press. Right? So if we're not printing our own, you know, our own version of what's happening to it and how those things affect our people, then we got to wait on somebody else to tell our narrative.
Right.
Right? And if you understand, you know, you can't, it's impossible to understand Prophet Noble Drew Ali unless you understand the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Because we consider Marcus Garvey to be our forerunner. He was the one that opened the way for the prophet. Right? He was the one that gave the red, black, and green banner, right, to remind us that we were supposed to have a flag. But it wasn't his job to bring the flag. The prophet actually brought the flag. Islam wars?
Islam.
All right? I suggest, you know, get anything by Marcus Garvey. Philosophies and Opinions by Marcus Garvey. Message to the People by Marcus Garvey. Any of that stuff, right? But, and again, just drawing from, my Moorish literature is kind of beat up because it's been read. But that's the Moorish literature pamphlet right here, all right? And this is, again, October 17th, 1928. This is the convention time, right? So, you know, the convention was October 15th through 20th, right? So every day, what was happening during convention time, grand sheiks and governors from all around the country convened on Chicago, right? And they're, you know, basically making enforced law, you know what I mean? So these particular laws came about, you know, as a result of certain things that was going on in the temples. Like the one that was saying, you know, refrain from alcoholic liquors. Remember, we were coming out of Negro, black, and colored. You know, there were certain ones during that time that was wearing their, you know, wearing their fezzes, and they would walk in a bar with the fez on and start throwing back liquor with the fez on. The prophet's like, no, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Or certain sisters might be disrespecting the turban, doing low type thought things in the turban, right? So, you know, the prophet was like, look, he said, you know, and he gets into it later, but he's like, you know, keep these things until you get strong enough, at least keep them out the eyes of the public. Right? Because we can't afford to do anything that will, you know, would prejudice the, you know, the mass group of people against the movement. Because the movement is for the people, right? So if we drag the movement to the very lowest, what would the people have?
That's right.
Islam? So moving forward, it says membership, sisters and brothers, is free. Not only here, but all over the world. Right after that, he says the button is 25 cents, the card is 25 cents, and 1 month's dues is paid. Again, this is 1928. It says every member pays 50 cents a month for dues. This money goes towards the support of the temple. This, if not paid, does not entitle you to the protection that's provided you, especially if you are not working or in the position to work. If you neglect to fulfill the small duty assigned to you, how can you rightfully expect money or other help when you are sick or otherwise disabled? Has anybody heard the term mutual benefit society? What is a mutual benefit society or a fraternal benefit society?
Society that's benefiting off of each other being in there.
Okay, but I mean, how does it function though? How does it work?
I mean, how does it function? Kind of like the Buford Highway situation that he's given.
Okay, so basically, and you're correct, but to just flesh it out a little bit more, a mutual benefit society is, you know, the prophet gives us, you know, the degree of what we call social duties, right? And in the chapter of social duties, he talks about receiving and conferring mutual helps and reciprocal obligations. So in other words, what does that mean? That means that, you know, right now, you know, all the members of the Moorish Temple of America pay dues towards the temple. Dues goes towards the treasury, right? Member gets sick, can't work, whatever, right? You know, but still they're sick, but their bills, you know, rent still need to be paid, utilities, food in the house, all that type of stuff, whatever. We will go in the treasury and pull out a certain amount. Oh my God, go out and get a certain amount, you know what I mean, and allocate to the family, right? To give to the families, you know, to make sure that they can, you know, continue to exist, right? This is how the other nations of the world are functioning. You know what I'm saying? But see, that concept of a mutual benefit society began back during the time where prophet was on the scene. So, you know, the Moorish Temple wasn't the only one. There was a bunch of them all over. But this was the only one that was designed with the Moorish thought in mind, which is giving us our nationality back. All right? So it says, and to be a real Moorish leader, you must study the Quran and divine constitution that is handed down unto you by I, the prophet. The head of any temple can maintain an emergency fund which cannot exceed the amount from 25 cents to 50 cents a week per member. All public collections and dues also go to the support of the temple and its domestic work. The head of every temple must, by law, obey the obey the word of the prophet, and if any head leader or any head of any temple fails to obey these laws, embezzlement is his charge, and is subject to the enforcement of the law by the grand body. And the penalty may be a fine or removal from office or placed under a very heavy restriction of the law. Supreme words of the prophet, Noble Drew Ali. So all of this is going under the principle of what we refer to in the Divine Constitutional Bylaws as Act 1. Act 1, the Grand Sheik and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It's the power to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the prophet and the grand body, the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. That automatically, if you know these terms, makes us what is known as a jural society. Jural. A jural society is a society that makes and enforces laws for its own well-being. You see what I'm saying? So that puts us as equals with other, free national groups that are here in America, right? Because by being Negroes, blacks, and colors, we were in violation of that and not in order, right? We found ourselves in a position where we're around other groups of people who have a system of order, but we do not, right? Has anyone ever been, the chairman mentioned a city council meeting. Anyone ever been to a city council meeting before? Slab. What is the governing body of order that the city council meeting functions with?
That I don't know. I just know.
Okay. That's something referred to as Robert's Rules of Order, which is called parliamentary procedure, right? So meaning that there's a reason why the Moorish Science Temple of America generally, how it functions, that before when someone has a question, before they ask their question, they rise, raise their hand, recognize, they rise, I rise, giving all praises to Allah, and the highest of honors to His holy divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Then they make their statement. There's a reason why the prophet trained us that way in that custom, because when you go, whether it's a city council, whether you're going to state capitol building, whether you're going to U.S. Capitol building, whatever, when they get up there, thank you, Honorable Chairman, I rise, giving honors to it. He gives honors to the chairman, the district, all the august body. Then he speaks. Islam.
What was that you told him again?
Robert's Rules of Order. And they have the PDF online, and they have a bunch of YouTube videos that actually teaches you the procedure. And it's also known as parliamentary procedure, right? Mm-hmm. And, the science on that is, the prophet tells you in Act 6 that this is a new era of time now. And all men must, recognize, be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. I'm paraphrasing. But the point is that in this new era of time, governments have gotten away from, absolute monarchies. Right? That's what existed in ancient times. When we talk about what was the title given to our ruler in Morocco? Sultan, right? And the Sultan was an absolute ruler. What the Sultan said was law, period. If it came out of his mouth, everybody had to get behind it, right? That's good if you got a good Sultan, right? But if you got a despot or a tyrant Sultan, right? The only way to get him out would be to take him out. You see what I'm saying? And this is the position the Moorish Empire found ourselves in. When corrupt ones will come, you take a Sultan out, and all his people now are mad because you took him out, and it creates a civil war situation, right? But, so masters that were behind the scenes began to theorize, okay, well, what if we put together modes of government that will put the power back in the hands of people, right? There were a lot of people in the ancient world that were against that, right? Because that's good if you got a wise and studious populace, right? But if you have a lazy populace, people that don't study law, don't read the Constitution, how many Asiatics you know that have actually read the U.S. Constitution and actually know it, right? But we find ourselves in positions where we're governed by it and don't know the laws under which we're governed, right? Like example, you bring up paying taxes, and our people, we protest. But if you go get gas, are you aware that the tax is included in the gas price?
Right.
Islam? There's a political process that governs that. Or when you turn the faucet on, right? That water is coming out the faucet. There's a Department of Watershed Management. There's a political process that governs that, right? And if we're not, if we're not taking part or having a say-so in the things that affect us daily, then we're still slaves, right? Or like the prophet said, belated beasts of burden. All right? We move forward. Draw something else from the prophet. Again, drawing from Moorish literature. A divine warning by the prophet for the nations, right? Again, giving clear conceptions, right? Brothers, now this area, you already know where I'm going, right? It says, a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. It says, the citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. So again, you know, I don't care if that's Washita, I don't care if that's North American, I don't care if that's whatever group that might exist, right? We're all one family, right? And that's the thing we have to remember, right? And not allow ourselves to fall into, you know, differences that cause us to not get work done, right? It says, those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that delude to slavery. Let me ask you this. Moors are familiar that, you know, that the Moors took over Spain in 711 AD. That's common knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Was it one group of Moors that did that? What was it?
Several.
Right.
But they were united.
Islam, Confederation, right? It was a plethora of different clans and tribes of what the European calls Berber tribes, right? Which were ancient Canaanite, Moabite, which we say Moorish tribes, right? Tribes and clans, right? Who did not always agree, and who weren't always Muslims, right? In terms of Prophet Muhammad, subsequent to Prophet Muhammad, right? And then there was a bunch of Arab tribes that came, right? And they were different clans and tribes with different traditions, so on and so forth, right? And those Moors and those Arabs didn't always agree, right? In fact, subsequent to the 711 AD takeover, you should research the 750 AD, the Berber Revolt, what they call it, right? Which is when the Moors rose up against the Arabs in Spain and slaughtered like 10,000 of them because they were trying to oppress the Moors, right? Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the greatest things that we've done through history, we did as a confederation of clans and tribes. It was never one group of us that did it. Right? A puzzle is beautiful when it's put together, right? Because it forms a picture. But a puzzle is a conglomerate of various different pieces, right? And sister might have a piece, brother right here might have a piece, whatever. Y'all got all your pieces, but if I got the corner piece, right, and y'all don't have my piece, the picture's not complete. Right? So it's the same thing. We have to remember different clans and tribes. Because again, 5 subordinate classes of humanity: family, clan, tribe, nation, empire. Family, mother, father, children. Clans, when numerous families come together. Tribes, when those clans come together and start organizing themselves based on commerce and trade. Right? Tribe, from the Latin word tribus, which means 3, because it's the third ranking. All right? Nation is when the tribes come together to form constitutions, a constituted law for themselves, right? And empire is when a nation's influence is being felt on more than one continent at a time, right? The ancient Moors, our forefathers and foremothers, had an empire, right? The United States of America right now has an empire, even though they don't use the term, right? Because in a republic, you don't have empires by name, right? But if you have the United States of America, which is situated here, and you have embassies and consulates and military bases all over the world, and if I'm living abroad, right? If I'm living abroad, but see, they didn't learn that from us, right? So we give, again, in a lot of ways, we still do a lot of reverse worship of the European, right? Oh, he did this and he did that. All he did was took the template that you left and ran it. That's it. He wasn't that smart. When you got to Europe, all he had was his kings lived in barns with, no concrete floors and all that. The castles you see in Europe was built by the Moors, right? To keep the Europeans out, right? And then when we got overthrown, they usurped the castles, right? So all the things that we extol the European before because he did, because they're things that he did and was a tyrant in doing them, were templates that he got from your forefathers. Okay? Let's move forward. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to the state of mind of their forefathers, divine and national principles, that they will be law abiders and receive their divine rights as citizens, according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. The prophet qualified the word citizen. It's the prophet. This is not me. I'm just a sheik of the prophet, right? He says they are to claim their own free national name and religion. Why did the prophet put religion in there? Because it sounds like he's having a national conversation. So why did he even put religion in there? Does anybody know?
I would say because each nation kind of identifies with their own.
Okay.
They had, each nation had its own prophet designated to that particular people who came with a specific lesson and practice for those people who were in need at that time.
Islam. If we were, let's go back, let's travel back in time. If we were in 1912, right, 1 year before the Prophet came, and a group of Asiatics got together like this to have a meeting, right? What would the Europeans do with that meeting?
And what time again?
1912. Anytime before 1913.
They probably it's gonna go down.
They ain't gonna bust it up because they have something called unlawful assembly, right? And
They got it today.
demonstrate. So now, the First Amendment, the U.S. Constitution says, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. All those rights come under religious rights. That's the power of religion. You see what I'm saying? What's the highest court in the land? Supreme Court, right? How does the Supreme Court open, their proceedings? What does it start with? A prayer. Now, they say church and state don't mix. But the highest court in the land, relative to interpretation of law, right, opens with prayer. So there's really not a separation between, you cannot.
Exactly, and when you go up in there, they putting their hand on that book.
You can swear or affirm. Or affirm.
That's right.
And you don't have to use the Bible. You can use whatever holy book. Islam. Yes, sir, brother.
But that's because all of their corporations are service members of the Vatican of Rome. So they have to.
Again, respectfully, I would assert that would be attributing too much power to the European nations. Because, you familiar with the Crusades?
Yeah.
Okay. Now the Crusade, would you mind taking off the glass?
I'm visually impaired.
Okay, all right.
Kingdom of the Vatican.
I like to connect. I like to connect with people.
This
So
artificial lights hurt my eyes.
The Vatican. Were you familiar with the Crusades? Who was the Crusades between? What was that war between? What groups of people?
The Iberian Peninsula people and the Greeks.
I disagree. The Crusades was a series of between 6 and 9 wars, and they were between what we like to refer to as, the Universal Order of Islam and the Roman Catholic Church, right? Because what happens is when you say Iberian Peninsula, if I can just go over here,
It's that region.
well, because again, before there was all these, nation names we have in Europe now, that was before the Moors entered Spain. There wasn't a Spain. Like the Moors said, that was Iberia, right? Really, that was not, the Visigoth territory, barbarian territory. France was Gaul, so on and so forth, right? So what happens is the reason why I wouldn't say it was just Iberia, right, is because that limits it to just this region, right?
Right.
The Crusades was basically when the Pope had given a decree, right, or a series of decrees known as papal bulls, right? And in these papal bulls, what he was doing was basically, issuing orders to the various different kings and queens of Europe. Because how did you become a king or queen back in those days? You had to get coronated by the Pope. What does that mean? Coronated means crown, right?
Yeah.
So you had to go and kneel before the Pope. The Pope had to crown you with the crown and do the prayer and officiate you and recognize your, your rulership or whatever. So all the kings and queens in Europe worked for the Pope, right? When you read, you familiar with the doctrine of discovery? Okay? The doctrine of discovery is a multitude of documents. It's not just one document.
Right.
Romanus Pontifex, Inter Caetera, Dum Diversas, there's a bunch of different documents. And when you read all of them, right, you get a chance to see directly, right, that our enslavement on these shores, right, was by way of consequence of an order or a series of orders that the Pope gave, right? So the Crusades was them warring back and forth. Now, in that, in both sides of the warring factions, right, you had ecclesiastical law, right? So you had the Sultan, and then, greater than the Sultan, higher than the Sultan in terms of ranking Islamically, you had the Caliph, right? The Caliph was the successor of the Prophet Muhammad. So he was the one that was over a particular dynasty of the Empire of Islam, right? So, depending on which dynasty you're talking about, you'd have a caliph that was over the Umayyads, right? Or a caliph that was over the Abbasids. These are various different, Asiatic Islamic dynasties, right? And the caliph was making sure that everything that, when they waged war against a European nation, they knew they were waging war on the Pope, right? So this is the whole thing that was going on. So now, what I'm saying was how everything is opening up in prayers, right? This is before, when was the Europeans' first corporation? So you use that, you invoke the term, so I'm just using that, because I generally don't do that on the way back.
No.
Right? It was 1600, right? And the first one was called the Dutch East India Company.
Okay, I learned
That was the Europeans' first, before that they knew nothing of corporations.
Okay.
Right? 1600, when were the Moors cast out of Spain? 1610. That's no strange happening, but now all of a sudden, when the Moors get cast out, the Europeans get all this knowledge of corporations, map making. Oh, the earth is round, it's not flat. They get all this new knowledge because it's stuff we left behind. People get rich off what you leave behind.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Right. So,
Islam.
right. So when you're talking about, these various different, ecclesiastical, renderings and stuff like that, the Vatican didn't start all that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And again, you have to remember that the Vatican was, I'll give you an example. You ever heard of the Coptic Church?
Yeah.
Okay. The Coptic Church, right, from the Arabic word Copti, which means center, right? Because at one point they were the center of the, right? At one point they were the center of the quote unquote Christian world, right? The Coptic Church is centered in Egypt, between Egypt and Ethiopia, right? Because at one time they were one, but now you have the Coptic Church and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, right? But let's take the Coptic Church. The Coptic Church has their own line of popes, and all of them are Asiatic.
Right.
Right? They're up to their 117th Pope, who was Pope Shenouda III. He's about this brother right here's complexion, long beard, speaks fluent Arabic. Right? He's a Pope right now that no one knows about. You see what I'm saying? But if you go to Egypt, you just see him, or if you Google him, Pope Shenouda III, it comes right up. Right? But the point is, in 325, what the whole thing was setting up that Roman Catholic Church was to overthrow the true followers of Jesus that came in and set up that Coptic Church. Right? To make Rome the centerpiece of the Christian world, right? So what I'm saying is, the prophet teaches us that, that the world's first religious creed was set up for the redemption and salvation of mankind on earth. It was set up by our ancient Moabite mothers and fathers, right? So the European does not have a monopoly on religion. You know what I'm saying? Because religion, the term religiality means to bind back. It's a system that binds you. Yes, sir.
So with you just told me something that I didn't know about the Pope, the Coptic Pope.
Okay.
So that would mean that he's still in power right now.
Yes, and okay. He's still in power.
That's
right. But at this point, at this juncture, how much power does he wield? Right? He has a lot of power in Egypt.
When people know about it, he will get more.
Well, yeah, but he has a lot of power locally, like in his, in his region, the surrounding areas. You know what I'm saying? But globally, he doesn't have the level of influence.
That
you see what I'm saying?
Pope Francis had.
Absolutely. That's like, because again, the level of power and influence that the Vatican has at this point is, relative to the enslavement of Asiatic peoples globally. You know what I mean? The Vatican Library is a combination of every time the European nations overthrew someone, let's say when they overthrew Egypt under Alexander's generals. When they overthrew that, they had what they call the Library of Alexandria, right? They burnt it to the ground. They took certain manuscripts back to the Vatican. Right. When they overthrew the Persians, they took the Persian library back to the Vatican. You see what I'm saying? See where I'm going here? So the ancient Moors, what they were doing was, the prophet mentions in Moorish literature, when book burning was a fad through Europe, the Moors were going in and saving certain manuscripts. We would get there before the Europeans would get there, and grab it and safeguard a lot of scriptures, right? So what you have now is Freemasonry, right? With stuff set up by way of, you've heard of Sufism in Islam?
Yes.
Right? Who are the Sufis in Islam?
I don't know who they are. I heard of it though.
Okay. Sufism is the mystical aspect of Islam. So you have Islam by way of its ritual. When people hear Islam, they think Ramadan, right? 5 prayers a day. You know what I'm saying? So on and so forth, the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca and all of that, right? But then you'll have ones that are, they take the verses of the Quran and delve into its mystical interpretation, the higher, the lofty teachings of it. These are Sufi. And the word Sufi comes from the Arabic word suf, which means wool. The Arab will tell you the word suf means wool because they wore wool garments. But you don't wear wool in the desert. You're passed out. You know what I'm saying? they were called Sufi because the wool was a reference to your hair, that woolly hair that y'all had. Right? We were known by our hair. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause the only thing on the planet Earth that got hair like us is a lamb or a sheep. You know what I'm saying? But the point is that, and that's denoting our innocence. You know what I'm saying? On a natural level, right? But at the same time is that the Sufis they deal with the concept of what they call initiation, right? So you can't just go up to a Sufi master and tell me the truth of the universe. You're like, who are you? Why should I tell you anything? Right? And he'll make you wait for a little while. And then if he sees you have certain character of patience, right? Then they might initiate you. And you have to go through certain things in your initiation. You know what I'm saying? And then you might have to, he might tell you something like, well, you know what, you can't wear all those colors. For 1 year you have to wear all of it. Right? And then you're just reflecting being, the degree of purity. You see what I'm saying? And during this, this year period, you can't ask any questions about anything that I do. Right? You just have to roll with me and just pay attention and observe. Right? All of this was the basis for what you now have as Freemasonry. Right? When you go in and you got entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. Right? And for each degree that you go up, you get initiated. Right? They learned that from our forefathers. Right? So again, why the prophet tells us to know thyself and thy father Allah is because when you know yourself, can't nobody come subsequent to you and tell you they created nothing. Right? They can't tell you about no corporation. They can't tell you about the European. All he did, he's copying you. You've heard of the Shriners? The Shriners before? How did the Shriners dress? What do they wear on their heads? Same thing I got on my head right now. But they take but they lock the tassel down to 33 degrees. Right? Because that's all we left them. Right? But we master builders, right? Right? So if you have 90 degrees, right, which is a right angle, shaped like a letter L, right? And you take that 90 degrees and you cut that 90 degrees in half, right? Or we stand on our square, that's 45. You stand on your 45, right? That's half of 90 degrees, right? So that's like, if you look like, look like this way, and then 45 is here, right? Which is interesting because that's the Arabic rendering of the word lamb in Arabic, ain't it? Islam. But 33 degrees is less than 45. So if this is a dead level, right, and this is the perpendicular to that, right, would represent the plumb line right here, meaning that you're upright. That's how you test verticals with a plumb line, right? And then half of that is 45, right? Means at a 45 you're just learning how to stand up straight, how to stand up right. 33 is less than 45, which really means you're still almost crawling. So that 33 degrees that they're representing is still in a form of barbarity, right? But we allowed them to wear our feathers. But they had to put jewels and stuff on it to tell what temple they were from.
Right.
Right? They call them temples, they don't call them mosques. At that level, at that 30 degrees, they call them temples. And all the temples have Arabic and Egyptian names. Right? El and Bay and Medina and Mecca and Cairo.
33 and the third is they hide. Right?
It's just 33. The third is people who aren't in those orders put the third on. That's only 33.
Okay.
33. And what happens is those will break down what they call Scottish and York rites.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about, the 33, that's those 33 degrees, that's the Scottish rite. Right? But the York rite is a shorter way to get, it's not 33, but it's a shorter route to get to the 33. Right? But again, when you deal with all those different degrees going up, when you look at what the degrees are named, it's and all the rites and rituals, the dramas that you're living out, you're enacting out in those sacred institutions. You're basically living out the Crusades, but on the Christian side. During the Middle Ages, what did Christian mean? Who did the term Christian refer to in the Middle Ages? Christian referred to the Europeans. Muslim meant Asiatic, right? So when the prophet says about Nicaraguans and Colombians and Chileans and all these people in the Americas, he says all of these are Muslims. He said they were on the other side of the Crusades, right? We were the ones that were warring against the Roman Catholic Church. Why the prophet says we are returning the church and Christianity back to the European nations because it was formed for their earthly salvation. Yes. While we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam because it was formed for our earthly and divine salvation. That's Prophet Noble Raleigh, because he's explaining to you the Crusades and what side of it we're on, right? And the same thing, and I heard the Sheik, referencing our brother Nipsey Hussle, may Allah accept his soul in paradise, right? The fact that a brother from his own set took his life, that's exactly where we were at the end of the Moorish Empire. It's the same stuff we were doing, right? If you ever heard of a European named El Cid, E-L-C-I-D, El Cid was a mercenary right? European mercenary, who, when the Moors were fighting each other, right? A Moor might hire El Cid to, help him, have him and his army join up with his army to overthrow his brother. And then once he overthrew his brother, the ones that were vanquished might hire El Cid to go kill them, right? So this is, the same stuff that caused us to be. That's the state that we were in that led to us being enslaved and marked Negro, Black, and colored, right? So we're still doing the same stuff to each other that caused us to be enslaved in ancient times. And if you think it can't be done again, you're fooling yourselves. Right? We're looking at a whole nother enslavement about to go down right now. Right? But let me just read a couple more paragraphs from that divine warning. The prophet says, there is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine national movement, which is incorporated. So we're not, we're not afraid of the word incorporate or corporate. So which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government and not under a granted privilege as has been the existing condition for many generations. Anybody ever heard of Louis B. Anderson? Louis B. Anderson was an individual that was running for governor back during the time of the prophet. The prophet instructed the Moors. He said, look, Anderson's our guy. We all going to get behind him and vote for him. Now, what's the problem with that statement? The problem with that statement was he just wanted to vote like that in 1928. Because they tell us that, the Voting Rights Act was in 1965, right? So we have almost 30 to 40 years before that. The prophet was organizing the Moors, 5,000 to be exact, in Chicago, right? To get behind this particular individual to get him elected to office, right? Because the prophet was moving in those political circles, right? Because, and again, be clear, he wasn't courting politicians. The politicians knew he had the people, so the politicians came to him, right? And that's one thing that your unity will do. Your unity will bring the power brokers to you. You don't have to be running and chasing people down, they got the things that our people need. All you got to do is organize, right? When the prophet says, this organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America and the laws, right? Keyword is organization. You got to be organized. I've seen Mexicans, because of different immigration laws that was passed, put 80,000 people in the streets on a 2-day notice. That's called power, right? That means that before the incident went down, they were already at a state of readiness. That means they didn't have to get ready, they were ready, right?
That comes with organizing and putting together specific agendas.
Islam.
That we gotta push forward. That's gonna help our people.
Islam.
And today I feel like a lot of people of our descent do not do that. Like you were saying, how the prophet got behind that fellow, and he said, "This is our guy. We're gonna stand behind him." Mm-hmm. We are promoting and pushing an agenda. Mm-hmm. We have to use different vessels in order to do that, and that's a prime example of that.
Islam. So, if I was to pose a question to the floor, what is it about other nations? What quality and what character do they have that enables them to organize on those levels? What do they have, and what are we missing? The floor is open. Islam.
Spirituality and indigenous nationality.
Okay. Islam. Go ahead.
Islam. I think the main thing, which I'm going to go to the government first, and that is, they argue all the time. Mm-hmm. They argue day and night in there, and they have their fusses about what agendas they trying to push for what people, but what they always end up doing is accepting the vote. Mm-hmm. They don't disband because
the vote
you lost. That's right. They can put their ego to a side and keep pushing forward. Mm-hmm. All right, we didn't get to push it this time. Next time we're going to try to push it harder. Mm-hmm. But this time we lost, he won, we're going to ride with him. Mm-hmm. They can do that. Us,
here's why.
Can never do that.
Let's say you have an Asiatic that's in a political office, and you see them making and enforcing law. Sometimes they go their way, sometimes they don't, and they stay, right? What do they have that enables them to do that? Generally, they are part of particular orders, right? What I mean by orders, I mean they're part of particular different societies, right? That teaches them and gives them instruction on how to suppress their passions, right, and use their reason. right? That's one thing the more science of America, we're big on, right? That, you know, let's say there's a matter of truth on the table that needs to be dealt with, right? Now you can feel either, and this is not mine, this is Sister Shahara Ali. You can feel any kind of way you want to about that truth. It's just gonna sit right there, right? So your feelings don't change the truth,
Exactly.
right? So all that about, you know, or this is what I feel about it, you know, like if I have an opinion about something, I prefix it with, this is just my general opinion. The Prophet says, general opinion offers no proof of truth, right? So I have to delineate my opinion from the truth,
Islam.
right? That's not me, that's Prophet Noble Drive, that's his instruction. See what I'm saying? And that is indeed a universal instruction, right? When you talk to brothers of the Masonic lodges, if you talk to brothers in different societies, when you got the Prophet's lessons down, you can talk to them as equals. Y'all will be talking the same language and don't even realize it. You don't get on that, well, he's a Mason and I'm a Moor, and I can't talk to him. No, then you're still on Negro principles. You're supposed to, with these lessons, you know, the Prophet said, these lessons are for all those who love Jesus, right? Well, what does Jesus mean? Jesus means justice, right? And what is justice? Justice is when every man gets his due, right? Whatever you put in the work, that's what you will receive, right? And who on earth is not looking for that, right? We want everybody to receive what's been put out, right? So that being the case, you know what I mean? You know, that degree of equanimity, with that being the case, we have to take our lessons seriously. The Prophet didn't put that Holy Quran and more science of America together for nothing. These are our divine instructions that puts us back in the mind state of our forefathers. How did our forefathers do it? How did our forefathers instruct other nations of the earth to do it? You see what I'm saying? They had these particular lessons. You know? Real quick, before it says, you who doubt whether I, the Prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those who know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government, and here's the Prophet, and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of the darkness into the light. Money doesn't make the man, it is free national standards and power that makes a man in a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone, and without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. So that's the whole thing. So, you know, nationality, we're throwing this term around, but what is nationality, right? The quality of character that arises from the fact of a person belonging to a nation or a state. Nationality also determines your political status, right? It also deals with allegiance as well. So that's what nationality is, right? So again, the nations of the earth are going to want to know who you belong to. I can ascertain that by asking you your name.
Right.
So we don't have to get no deep conversations about, you know, you don't have to, you know, break out the, you know, the 23andMe or the African ancestry, you know, DNA swab, right? I just ask you your name. And your surname or your last name should tell me, you know, your pedigree of descent, right? So if you're, you know, if you're looking like you do when you tell me your name is Jackie Chan, right, or Bruce Lee, I'm going to have some questions. You know what I'm saying? That's not good.
See, and that's something that culture shocks me, being from Louisiana and then living in Georgia, because in Louisiana there's so much tight knit. They're like, who's your mama? Who did you go to high school with? Oh, okay, we family.
Let me explain. I'm from New Jersey. Being in Atlanta from New Jersey is way more close knit than what I'm accustomed to. You know what I'm saying? Because again, you know, just having a business in this particular community right here, you know, it's amazing, like the amount of people that are related in this community. Everybody's related. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, they generally don't move far away from auntie and grandmama and them. They stay in a close proximity. And that was, the Prophet said the Moors should live around one another. Right? Because that's how you consolidate your power.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the Moors, how the Prophet had the Moors moving politically, he was able to do that because the Moors all lived in certain districts. Right? So when they go to allocate certain political power and they count the numbers, they say, well, how many of them live in, like right now you're in District 12. How many of them live in District 12? You know what I'm saying? You know, how many Moorish Americans? You know what I'm saying? And that would determine, you know what I'm saying, you know, what your voice would be relative to the council person that's over that district. You know what I'm saying? Because when you got numbers, that person will come see you. Oh, I noticed we were looking at the rolls and you have 2,000 Moorish Americans that live in my district. Well, what can I do for you? Right. But now you got to have your agenda ready.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? Islam, boy.
You know what I equate that to today?
What's that, brother?
Followers.
Islam.
Good leaders, and followers can push agendas.
Islam.
But you got to have the right kind of people.
Islam. But they have to have principles and virtues, though.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And principles and virtues come from the principle of nationality. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
You know, without a nationality, you don't have these things. You know, you can't put a lot of people together in a room and hope it work out.
No,
You know, and generally when you attempt to organize without teaching nationality, you know, and nationality and divine creed, that's what you're basically doing.
That's
Put us
exactly
together and hoping.
You got to build a mind up
First.
to good wisdom, knowledge, and understanding.
Islam, and give them, you know, demonstrate the beacon light, man. You know, I'm gonna just cut all the lofty down. Let's just be pragmatic. You know, the prophet said this is a field open to strong men and women. You gotta be strong, bro. You know what I mean? Like, we have certain laws, but it takes strength to live by the laws. You know what I mean? Because I don't know too many of us that was born knowing these things. See, when you're born knowing these principles, like, you ever talk to free national children that come that have nationalities? You know, they have these things, these principles down already because they were raised around them. It's not a doctrine in them, it's just what we do. Right? But, you know, it tend to become dogmatic and, kind of like a doctrinal thing when you come into it as an adult. Right? Because, the way I like to propose it is like, calculate how many years that you operated in your life where you didn't know. And, compare that to the amount of years when you came into the knowledge. Right? So until those years balance out, you still got a lot to fight, right? Or like I say, when you reach the point where you've been Muslim longer than you've been a Negro, right? Then now becomes second nature, which is really first nature.
That's right.
Right? But if you like 30 years been a Negro, and then you woke up and you got your nationality card, day one, and you a year in and you zealous, Islam will calm down, bro, because you still got a lot of the passions. You got to. The world cares nothing about what you feel, right? Because if our feelings meant anything, they wouldn't be shooting us down in the street. All the mama's tears and candlelight vigils and gospel songs, respectfully, and all that stuff that we do out of our feelings, if that meant anything, it would shape policy politically, but it doesn't, right? Because when you go into city council meetings, they're not talking about feelings, they're talking about the order of the day.
The very existence.
They're talking about order, they're talking about law. Right? And and that's what all of this, these fez and these turbans, are supposed to represent. And whether I got my fez on or not, I got my fez on. Whether I got my fez on or not, I'm still demonstrating principles. Right? And that should be the goal. Right? So, like the prophet gives us, got circle 7 in the front. You know what I'm saying? The circle is a perfect emblem for man, and the 7 is a perfect number for man, demonstrating perfection. You gotta be this record. Instead of, telling somebody, or turn to chapter such and such. No, let's put it aside. Read from my pages. Islam, and they can look at you as you walk. How many people, like, when you made a change in your life, and people see the change, walk up to you and ask you, what are you studying? I see a light on you. Like, what is it? People, and you'll magnetize the people to you. The prophet says, all you gotta do is hold me up in front of the people, and they'll come. Right? But you gotta get yourself out the way, though. Get your ego out the way. Right? Because a lot of us, again, want to be right so bad. We'll be right to the point where we offend our brother or sister and let them walk off in that statement. You see? And, and I could be wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, one of the things that led to our brother getting murdered was he called the brother a snitch. And out there, that means something. Right? Out there, I don't know what manhood is, but the little bit, what I think of manhood is, I would kill if you offend that, right? So when the brother called him that, he let him walk off in that state. He came back with that fire stick and demonstrated degrees. Low down, common and dirty degrees, right? But the point is that you got to care about the state that your people are in. And when you're trying to convey a thought, right? Remember, like, before I open my mouth, what is my purpose in opening my mouth? Is my purpose to uplift? Is my purpose to unify? Or is my purpose just to be right? Right? Because I could yield with being right, because at the end, the truth is going to manifest itself regardless. Whether I say it or not. So I ain't got to be right. I can put my ego to the side, just let the truth be. Truth is, right? Or I could master my lessons, and if I'm feeling overly passionate about a particular thing, let me hold till I feel that peace. Then speak in that state, right? Because if you speak in that part where your adrenaline's flowing, you're going to say the wrong thing. And then we go right back to the tribal wars. You see? So, again, as a Moorish American Muslim, we are somewhat of the referees on the battlefield of Asiatic people, right? So we got to get between them and stop them from doing the wars, but you got to be a strong individual. You know, it takes a strong man or woman to get behind the prophet and do what he asked you to, right? Because some of the things he asked you to do is difficult because it's against what is being conveyed out there. It's against, you know, it's a lot. In other words, when somebody offends you verbally, right, there's several ways you can go. You could go animal and take their head, right? Anybody here study martial arts? Any form of boxing, MMA, anything? Right? There's a power in knowing that you can do something to someone and restrain.
Yeah.
Don't do it. You know what? I'm gonna let you live today. You didn't realize that right now your life was in my hands, right? And because I have my disciplines, I can yield and let you go and find the truth, rather than putting a period to the end of your life. There's a power in that, right? And that's what it means about standing on your square. You know, that's what it means about circumscribing. That's what it means about using your compass to draw a circle around yourself and don't get outside those bounds. You know, you demonstrate the compass on yourself, right? So that's what that is. So, you know, there's a maturity that comes along with guiding people, right? And most of our people don't have that. That's the problem in this conscious community era, right? Because of the advent of social media and the internet, you know, you got people just debating back and forth and, you know, busting people up, whatever. But I remember, you know, when it, you know, before I'm 46, I remember when you had to go out on the street corners and building and look a man in his eyes and debating that way and, you know, whatever. And there was rules to it. So if I was debating a brother from the Nation of Islam and I didn't agree with his doctrine, I never talked negatively about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or Master Farah Muhammad. We would just debate doctrine, right? But I never slandered your leader because that man brought you to where you are right now, and I respect that, right? So again, like, you know, it has to be, you know, using the term loosely, it has to be OGs that pass the unwritten laws down to the younger brothers. You know what I'm saying? Because y'all are coming into this thing not realizing what we went through, you know what I'm saying, even bear this knowledge. You know what I'm saying? You know, being shot at by Europeans, being called niggas, being called, pardon the language on the holy day. But, you know, having to go through all those things just to be able to stand before you right now and demonstrate certain truths. Y'all, we running, and we got the torch, the torch back like this. Y'all gotta pick that stick up and keep running. You know what I'm saying? But we gotta be willing to pass it back. And part of that is giving the instruction on how to do it. You know what I'm saying? And it's a science to raising your people up. And if you don't know the intricacies of that science, you become a part of the problem and not even a part of the solution. Right? So Noble Drew Ali gives us our remedies. Right? And I love my brother right here for how he, you know what I'm saying, during the discourse, he went to the law. He pulled the law. I said, wait a minute, well, Court Act 5 reads this way, you know, and I believe I just follow the prophet and get behind what he said, all will be well. You know what I'm saying? Now, if people could do that and just defer to the higher source of law during any form of disagreement we may have, we'll be well. But the point is, we have to have something to defer to, right? So if it ain't the prophet, here in the More Science of America, when that charter, these flags are hoisted, that's what it is. In this, you know, in this house, as long as that, we take that down and we out in the world or whatever, and we deal with somebody that's not operating from those principles, we still have to go to a higher thought, right? And find the happy medium between us and the person, right? And get it back to uplift. Right? Are there any questions, comments, concerns, or statements? Islam, brother.
I just want to say that I've been following you guys since August, and I think
praise
it's
Allah.
awesome.
Really? My
Yes.
brother, thank you very much. No, the honor is ours to be in your presence today. You know,
That.
you're welcome to come back anytime. I appreciate the More Science of America is a place where we ask people to come, let us reason together. You know what I'm saying? And you know, we have to be, we have to be willing to, because we have to be willing to open the floor from the questions for the people. Because again, what we like to say is that never allow someone to come before you and make a bunch of claims without displaying evidence of their claims. You know what I mean? Because we have to get used to that, because when we get in the affairs of men, we have to learn how to open our mouths, right? But not in our feelings, but with reason, right? And hold them to the law. So if we're in a secular government, we have to be able to, hold them to their charter. When the More Science of America, we have to go to our charter, right? And the wording of that gives us, that empowers us with the work that we're called to do. So it gives you the parameters by the rules and usages. But you got to understand, you got to know what that is. You know what I'm saying? And you have to be taught what that is. You know what I mean? I want to thank you for, for having the patience, to be watching us since August, right? Because there's a lot of work that's being done. A lot that's off. Most of it's off camera.
Of course.
Most of it's off camera. Most of it is not, we don't do it for glory and none of that type of stuff, but most of it is a really common, mundane work. And a lot of people aren't really cut out for that. People like the pictures and the photo ops and the, whatever. But the stuff that's, when we out and, we raising up our brothers and sisters that don't have a home, that's living on the streets. You know what I'm saying? And we looking at them and, making them realize like, brother, I love you, brother. You're my brother. What do you need? You know what I mean? Because I was talking to a homeless brother one time. He said, you know what, brother? I want to thank you. I said, why? He said, because you looked at me today. I said, what do you mean? He said, when you're homeless, people don't look at you because they're afraid you're going to ask them for something, right? And he said, he told me something. He said, human beings are social creatures. He said, one of the things that we need to stay sane is interaction. And if you cut that from us, we lose our minds. He said, why in prison they put you in a hole to punish you, right? Isolation, right? Away from people. He said, so, without worrying, was I going to ask you for something? You looked at me, you smiled at me, and you called me brother. You know what I'm saying? So it's that's the work. You understand what I'm saying? That's the real work. I mean, could we do something? Could we throw a banquet and invite the homeless and treat them like royalty? Can we do that? You understand what I'm saying? These are the things, like if you get into the teachings, where the prophet says, we are all true and divine prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. When you get into them ancient masters, this is what they did. There's one story about the brother Jesus said, when he was a little boy, said he threw a party for him, it was like, his solar return, they said like his birthday. And he brought all kind of gifts and all kind of stuff, whatever. And he was sitting there, he was sad. And they were like, well, what's wrong with you? It's your day. Whatever. He's like, I don't feel that this is right, that we're doing all of this, in celebration of my birthday, and there's people that have nothing to eat or whatever. Can I go and bring them here and honor them and let them feast? Can I do that? And they looked at him like, yeah, go ahead and do it. So him and all the children went out and got all the people that were homeless, whatever, and brought them and feast and gave the homeless people a feast. You see what I'm saying? That's work. That's real adept work. That's real Moorish work. That's the work our forefathers have done, right? Getting in rooms, debating how great we are, and the history and what we've done or whatever, means nothing if you're not doing nothing now. You know what I mean? And again, I'm honored to have an elder present, and I got a youth present, and I got one of the sisters present. We winning. You see what I'm saying? Because those are all the elements of society, right? And the only thing we're missing is children. If it was some babies in here, we'd really be winning, because that means future. You know what I'm saying? And y'all are young brothers. Y'all have any children?
I got plenty of children, but none of them was biologically.
Oh, it's all right. But consider thou art a parent. The being thou has produced, or the children that you're around, is thou duty to support. You know what I'm saying? You got to support them because again, I don't know what their infrastructure is, but you might be the strongest person they know. You see what I'm saying? So it's your obligation to make sure that they have it. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? But and with that, I'll lower the meeting. Islam, Moors? Islam. Moor Science Symbol of America. Noble Drew Ali founder, Home Office, Chicago, Illinois, March 11th, 1929. A warning from the Prophet to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical and agitating speech while on their jobs, homes, or on the public streets. We advocate peace and not destruction. Stop trying out your cards with the Europeans, for it causes confusion. There has been much confusion caused by members trying out their cards. The cards are for your salvation. Failure of obeying my orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members that seek to hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet, or to violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet, and if they lose confidence in their prophet, give up your card and button, cease wearing your turban or fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet is sending out a divine plea to all true Moorish Americans that they may do their part in protecting the prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet, through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace. Noble Drew Ali. Islam. All praise are due to Allah, the highest of honors, to his holy divine prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. We're giving honors to today's holy day. Friday is a holy day, for all Muslims all over the world. Islam, Moors?
Islam.
I'd like to leave you with two thoughts. One, language is key. Right? The prophet taught us in a specific language. Right? Moorish Americans are able to identify one another by how we speak. Right? We are able to put sentences together in a way or one more, even if he didn't have his vestments on, could recognize that was one of the prophet's laws, right? The reason why the prophet taught us that way is because the nations of the earth operate the same way, right? Lawyers go to law school and pay thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to learn language, right?
Right.
They call it legalese in a layman's sense, right? But to learn, so language is very important. Now, in communicating your position relative to your status here in this country, your political status in this country, there's certain language that will group you in certain different ways. As a Grand Sheik of the Simple, I've spoken to government officials, right, from various different agencies and departments. And they've made it very clear to me the things they're adamant about going after. And those things speak a certain way. Those things have a certain language attached to them. And when you identify yourself as by these things, you put yourself in a category. This is a book entitled Ruby Ridge, right? It's about this individual right here. His name is Randy Weaver. That's his daughter, Elizabeth, at the bottom, right? I met this individual at a gun show some years ago here in Georgia. He was giving a talk because that's when he just released the book. And some of you are kind of young. But back in I think it was '92, it was an incident with this individual, Randy Weaver. He was a survivalist type of European, and he sought to get away from the corporate government, as some would put it. And he left, I think it was somewhere in the Midwest, and he moved up to like Idaho, somewhere on a mountain. And him and his wife and the children, they built a house for themselves. They had, they didn't have like the, water from, to the city or anything like that. They had to dig a well and a bunch of other things. Meanwhile, during the process of doing that, he ran short on money. They needed food, all kind of stuff. So he unplugged from the government, right? But he had no backup. He just went in the woods with no plan. So ran short on money. So him being a European, there were a group of white nationalists, their term, not ours, a group of white nationalists that were demonstrating under neo-Nazi and Aryan ideals that were formulating under something known as Christian identity, right? The Christian identity movement is what gave birth to what the Southern Poverty Law Center has written, which is a term they've gotten from the FBI, as the sovereign citizen movement, right? As he was attending these meetings, right, there was a particular individual, asked him, said, look, he said, I will, I'll make this short. He said, I'll give you a certain amount of money if you take these 3 shotguns that I have and saw them off, right? He said, well, I don't know about it because, that's a federal offense to saw the shotgun, right? But he needed the money. So he saw the shotguns off and the guy gave him the money. Little did he know the guy was a federal agent, right? Which gave them jurisdiction to go start surveilling his land. His son was walking on the land with a rifle, heard something in the bushes, shot into the bushes, thought it was an animal, hit one of the agents, and it led to a 3-week standoff, right? In the process of that, Mr. Weaver's pregnant wife was shot in the face, murdered. His son Sam, who was like 10, was murdered. They killed his dog, shot the neighbor, a bunch of other stuff. Subsequent to that, you had the incident in Waco. Subsequent to that, you had the Oklahoma bombing. Subsequent to that, you had 9/11. When you're nowadays looking at law and what is a thorn in the side of government, you'll notice that there are certain terms, a certain classification that you're falling. Now, Prophet Noble Drew Ali was very specific in how he taught us how to term ourselves, and so on and so forth. As I spoke to the government officials, they've made it clear that we have no problem with Prophet Noble Drew Ali and Moorish Science Temple of America. If you read the Freedom of Information Act under the Moorish Science Temple of America, you can read the declassified FBI files. It's 3,117 pages. I've read most of it. Inside of there, or at the end of it, they concluded that the Moorish Science Temple of America, so from 1929, 28 to 1984, they concluded the Moorish Science Temple of America is in nowhere a threat to domestic security, internal security of the United States of America, right? They closed that particular case in 1984, but now, because there's people claiming to be Moors doing a bunch of folly, stealing houses, driving or traveling with no licenses, and a bunch of other stuff that has nothing to do with the work that we're called to do,
corporate.
Here, may I have the floor? Thank you, sir. There's a bunch of things, that's the passion I was talking about. There's a bunch of things that is, that's caused them to reopen certain cases, right? Because it's very clear, because again, we've always worked with the governments of the earth. You know what I'm saying? We don't have a spook, there ain't no mystery gods. Ain't no spook demons. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no spook thing that's gonna come and, make you successful in this world. And ain't no spook thing that's gonna come and take you out, right? The reality of it is that we gotta know when we're saying certain things, when you step into the affairs of men, it's not a game. You know what I'm saying? It's real things. You know what I'm saying? You got, and I'm not, I don't promote fear. I promote awareness. You know what I mean? The U.S. Riot Commission report that was put out after the 60s riots, right? Inside of that, they bore witness in that report. They said that when all this jumped off, we didn't have enough jails to lock everybody up in 1965, 68, when King got killed, Dr. King. So we didn't have enough jails to lock everybody up. Subsequent to that, we had was, passed, called the King Alfred Plan. In 1984, they updated that, called the Rex 84 Martial Law Contingency Program, where inside of that, they went and started a mass building project of prisons all throughout the United States. Mm-hmm. Now these prisons, there's prisons like in the Midwest area, brand new prison, seats 1,500, 2,000 people, nobody in it. Power's on, ready to go, right? And there's hundreds of these things all through, right? Now, I love my people, and I desire their unity and mine, you know what I'm saying, back to where we need to be. But we, when we're talking about being in the affairs of men, we got to know what we're talking about, because, I have a wife. All the babies that are in our temple, usually when they cut there's other women and children are present. But all of them are under the sound of my voice. And I refuse, as the Grand Sheik of this temple, I refuse to put forth any doctrines that's going to put them in harm's way. That's irresponsible leadership, right? So, if we're going to study, we got to really study. If we're going to talk law, we got to really talk law. If we're going to talk government, we got to talk government. We're going to talk autonomy, and self-governance. We got to really be that and learn how to respect one another and be that. But what I'm saying is that this is nothing that's a joke. That's the one thing I want to say. Like I said, last thing in 2 minutes. The New Zealand shooting. Did anyone see that? Where the guy ran in the mosque and killed 50 people. Mm-hmm. Where he shot 100 people between 2 mosques. He murdered 50 and wounded 50, right? The individual wrote a manifesto. In that manifesto, 87 pages, called The Great Replacement. He's talking about you, right? In there, he's talking about it. It opens up. He says, it's the birth rates, it's the birth rates, it's the birth rates. And he's talking about how European nations are at 0 birth rate, which means that there's more of them dying than being born. Meanwhile, right, he's saying the average Muslim family, right, he starts talking about Islam, the average Muslim family has a minimum of 8 children in Europe and at least 5 in the States, right? Because we, that's what we do, you know what I mean? But inside of that, he gets to talking about, he gets into Moorish history without saying the word more, He said, I shot all them, I ran and shot that mosque up to give honor to all my forefathers that were in Europe, that were dragged out of Europe and enslaved in other lands. That was your forefathers, when you drug them from Europe and put them in North Africa, right? And he gets to talk about the Turks, when the Turks ran up in 1453, and took Rome from them and made it Turkey. You know what I'm saying? And all this type of stuff. So what I'm saying is, all that Crusades and all that stuff, that's not ancient history. That stuff is right now. Fact right now. And people losing their lives right now. He admitted in the manifesto that he did everything he did to try to incite further wars in the United States and other countries abroad. Right? So what I'm saying was is that this ain't playtime. This ain't being deep time. This ain't none of that. It's to get something done time. Right? Find yourself a local Moorish Science Temple of America, and get in harmony with the uplifting acts that are being done in that temple. Right? Because that's the power that it takes. And because from there you have the power to go to other groups and unify with them. Without the teachings and instruction for the Moorish Science of America, you won't have the power. You'll go and be divisive amongst those other groups, and that's what we don't need. Islam? Islam. So everybody come on home and fall back in with the Prophet Noble Drive. Everyone please rise, face east, right ahead of you. Hold your feet at the 45-degree angle, stand in your square. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Invoking the sacred presence of the 7th Elohim that created everything that ever was, is, and evermore to be. For our visitors, please adopt a position of prayer. It's comfortable for you and give homage to our collective Creator. Please repeat after me. Allah.
Allah.
The Father of the universe.
The Father of the universe.
The Father of love.
The Father of love.
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my guide,
and my salvation.
and my salvation.
By night
By night
and by day.
and by day.
Through his holy prophet,
Through his holy prophet,
Drew Ali.
Drew Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islam, boys.
Islam.
Praise Allah.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah.